Ever wondered why a name like Tatenda carries so much heart in Shona culture? From sacred rituals under baobab trees to reclaiming identity after colonial rule, discover the powerful stories behind Shona names and how they are thriving in 2025. Welcome to today's episode where I will answer one of the most frequently asked questions. Why are names so important in Shona culture? So without wasting time, let's get started. Let's start by looking at the importance of names in Shona tradition, naming rituals and meanings. In Shona culture, a name is more than just a word to call someone. It's a story, a hope, a prayer, or even a reflection of life's ups and downs. For the Shona people, who are mostly found in Zimbabwe and some in southern Zambia, naming a child is a deeply meaningful act that connects the child to their family, community, and even their ancestors. So today we are going to explore the beauty of Shona naming customs, what names mean, how they reflect life's circumstances and hopes, and how these traditions have evolved over time. The significance of names in Shona culture. In Shona tradition, a name is like a gift that carries a message. Parents believe a name can shape a child's future, influence their personality, or express gratitude to God or ancestors. Names are chosen carefully to reflect the circumstances surrounding the child's birth, the family's experiences, or the parents' dreams for their child. For example, a child born during tough times might be named Tarisai, meaning look or behold, symbolizing hope and a call to see better days ahead. A name like Tinashe, God is with us, might be given to show faith in divine protection. These names are not random, they carry the weight of emotions, faith, or events. For example, a name like Muchanduona is a signal of family disputes or conflicts. Naming is also a way to honor family or community ties. Many Shona names connect to ancestors, keeping their memory alive. A child might be named after a grandparent or a respected elder, like Sekai, meaning laughter, to carry forward their legacy. This practice strengthens family bonds and reminds the child of their roots. Now let's come to naming rituals in Shona tradition. In traditional Shona culture, naming a child was a sacred event, often guided by elders or spiritual leaders. After a baby was born, the family would wait for a few days, sometimes up to a week, before giving a name. This waiting period allowed parents and elders to observe the child, reflect on the family's situation, or seek guidance from ancestors through dreams or rituals. The naming process often involved a small ceremony called kuperekedza mwana, accompanying the child, where family members gathered to celebrate the baby's arrival. Elders would share stories, pray, or offer blessings to welcome the child into the community. The chosen name was announced during this gathering, and it was a moment of joy and unity. Sometimes a nganga or a traditional healer or sekuru or a grandfather would suggest a name based on spiritual insights. For example, if the family faced challenges before the child's birth, a name like Mufaro, meaning happiness, might be chosen to signal a new joyful chapter. Unique Shona names and their significance. Shona names are rich with meaning, often drawn from nature, emotions, or spiritual beliefs. Here are some unique Shona names and what they represent. Tadiwa, we are loved. This name reflects gratitude for the love and support the family feels, perhaps after overcoming hardships. Rudo, love. A child named Rudo is a reminder of the love within the family or a hope that the child will spread love. Tatenda, we are thankful. This name expresses gratitude to God or ancestors for the child's safe arrival. Nyasha, mercy or grace, often given to a child seen as a blessing or a sign of divine kindness. Tawanda, we have multiplied. This name celebrates the growth of the family or community. Kudakwash, God's will, a name that acknowledges faith in a higher power guiding the family's path. These names are not just beautiful, they tell a story. For example, a family that struggled to have a child might name their baby Chipo, gift, to show that the child is a precious blessing. How Shona naming customs have changed over time. While Shona naming traditions remain strong, they've evolved over the years due to modernization, Christianity, and global influences. In the past, names were almost always tied to Shona language and culture, chosen during traditional ceremonies with input from elders. Today, many Shona families blend old customs with new ideas. Influence of Christianity. Since the arrival of Christianity in Zimbabwe, many Shona people choose names from the Bible like Tendai, be thankful, or Tinashe, God is with us, which combine Christian faith with Shona meanings. Some families also use English names like blessing or faith alongside traditional ones. Urbanization and globalization. As more Shona people move to cities or connect with the wider world, some parents pick names that sound modern or international, like Natasha or Kyle. However, they often pair this with a Shona name, creating a balance between traditional and modernity. For example, a child might be called Natasha Nyasha. Changing rituals. In rural areas, naming ceremonies are still common, but in urban settings, they are less formal. Some families now announce names at church services or through social media, reflecting how technology has changed traditions. Gender neutral names. Many Shona names like Tatenda or Tinashe are unisex, which was always part of the culture. However, modern parents are more open to experimenting with names, sometimes choosing ones that don't follow traditional patterns to reflect personal taste. Despite these changes, the core of Shona naming remains the same. Names still carry deep meaning, and parents choose them with care to reflect their hopes, faith, or life circumstances. Shona naming customs during and after the colonial era. We have just looked at Shona names from a Shona culture perspective, where names are deeply meaningful, carrying stories, hopes, and connections to family and ancestors. However, during the colonial era in Zimbabwe, for some who do not know the colonial period, it was the then Rhodesia, roughly between 1819 and 1980, a time when Shona traditions faced significant disruption as colonial authorities and missionaries often forced and encouraged Shona people to adopt English or Christian names. Let me go deeper to explore how Shona naming customs were affected, how they've changed since, and the resurgence of traditional names in modern times. Now let's look at the impact of colonialism on Shona names. During the colonial era, British rulers and Christian missionaries viewed African names and customs as uncivilized. They pushed Shona people to adopt English or biblical names, often as a way to erase cultural identity and enforce control. This had a big impact on naming practices. Forced adoption of English names. Many Shona people were required to take English names, especially when registering births, attending school, or working in colonial systems. Names like John, Mary, or James became common, often replacing or used alongside Shona names. For example, a child named Tinashe might be forced to use Thomas on official documents. Missionary influence. Christian missionaries played a big role in promoting biblical names. At baptism, children were often given names like Peter, Sarah, or Elizabeth. While some Shona families embraced these names to align with Christianity, others felt pressured to abandon traditional names to fit into colonial society. Loss of cultural identity. Using English names disconnected many Shona people from their heritage. Traditional naming ceremonies became less common, especially in urban areas or mission schools where colonial rules were stricter. This made it harder for families to pass down names that honored ancestors or reflected their experiences. So this led to dual naming. So some Shona people used a mix of names to navigate colonial life. They might have a Shona name like Nyasha, used at home, and an English name like Grace for school or work. This allowed them to keep their culture privately while fitting into colonial systems. So we just want to look at how naming customs have changed since independence. So Zimbabwe gained independence in 1980, and with it came a renewed pride in Shona culture and identity. Since then, naming practices have evolved significantly, blending tradition with modern influences. So here is how things have changed. Revival of traditional names. After independence, many Shona people returned to using traditional names to reclaim their cultural identity. Names like Tadiwa, Kudakwashe became popular again as symbols of pride and resistance against colonial legacies. Parents began choosing names that reflected their heritage rather than English ones. Blending old and new. While traditional names made a comeback, Christianity and globalization still influence naming today. Many Shona names like Tendai, Tinashe align with Christian values while staying rooted in Shona language. Some families also pair Shona names with English ones like Tatenda Michael to balance tradition and modernity. Modern naming practices. In 2025, naming ceremonies are less common in urban areas where families might announce names at church or on social media. However, in rural areas, traditional practices like kuperekedza mwana still happen, with elders choosing names based on family events or spiritual guidance. Technology and migration have also led some parents to pick globally inspired names like Natasha or Kyle, but often alongside a Shona name. Cultural pride and awareness. Today, there's a growing movement among young Shona people to embrace their traditional names, especially as a way to connect with their roots. Social media platforms like X show posts where Zimbabweans celebrate names like Munashe, sharing their meanings and stories. This reflects a broader cultural revival, especially among those living abroad who want to stay tied to their heritage. I just want to share that I have noticed a new trend. Maybe it's just me. Let me know in the comments. Have you noticed how Zimbabwe youth are embracing Shona names to reclaim identity and rewrite cultural narratives in 2025? Why are Zimbabwe young people proudly choosing names like Nyasha and Tinashe? Let's explore and let's dig deeper into this. There is something about the younger generation of today. For the younger generation in Zimbabwe and in the diaspora, born in the late 1990s to early 2010s, there is a growing hunger to know who they are and where they come from. This drive for identity has sparked a renewed love for Shona names, alongside a bold effort to change outdated narratives about their culture. Growing up in a globalized world, Zimbabwe's youth face a mix of influences: social media, Western pop culture, and urban lifestyles. Men feel caught between modernity and tradition, especially those in the diaspora. For example, those who are living in the UK, in the USA, or South Africa. This has fueled a deep desire to reconnect with their roots and answer questions like, who am I? What makes me Shona? For these young people, Shona names are a powerful link to their heritage. Names like Tatenda, Mufaro, they remind them of their family values and history. In 2025, platforms like X show young Zimbabweans sharing posts about their names' meanings, often with pride. For example, a 2024 X post from a user in Harare read, "My name is Tadiwa, meaning we are loved. It's a reminder of my family's strength. Hashtag Shona Pride." This reflects a generation eager to celebrate their identity. The colonial era, 1890 to 1980, left scars. Shona people were often forced to adopt English names like John or Mary, disconnecting them from their culture. Young people today see reclaiming Shona names as a way to heal those wounds and assert their place in the world. They are not just looking backward, they are using their heritage to build confidence and purpose in a fast changing society. Attitudes towards Shona names. The younger generation's attitude towards Shona names is one of pride, creativity, defiance. Here is how they are engaging with these names in 2025. Pride in cultural roots. Unlike earlier generations who sometimes used English names to fit into colonial or global systems, today's youth embrace Shona names as badges of honor. Names like Nyasha or Tinashe are seen as beautiful and meaningful. Young people often share their name stories on social media, like I've just explained. Blending tradition and modernity. While they love traditional names, young Shona people are creative. Some pair Shona names with modern ones like Itendai Ryan to reflect their dual identities. Others choose unique Shona names like Rudo to stand out in global settings. This flexibility shows they are not stuck in the past, they are making tradition relevant for today's world. Rejecting colonial narratives. Many young people associate English names with colonial oppression. They see using Shona names as a way to reject the idea that African culture is lesser. For example, a young Zimbabwean in the diaspora might insist on being called Kudakwashe instead of Kevin, reclaiming their identity in spaces where African names were once sidelined. Celebrating unisex names. Shona names like Tatenda are often gender neutral, which resonates with the younger generation's open-minded views on identity. They appreciate how these names focus on meaning over rigid gender roles, aligning with global conversations about inclusivity. Using names to connect globally. In the diaspora, Shona names help young people stay tied to their culture while sharing it with others. A student in London named Munashe might explain their name to classmates, spreading awareness of Shona heritage. This turns names into bridges between cultures. Changing the narratives around Shona culture. So the younger generation isn't just embracing Shona names, they are actively rewriting the narrative around their culture, challenging stereotypes and amplifying their heritage. So here is how they are doing it in today's world. Using social media to amplify Shona names. Platforms like X and Instagram are powerful tools for young Zimbabweans. They share videos, threads, and posts about the meaning behind names like Tarisai, educating others and countering negative stereotypes about African culture. For example, a viral 2024 X thread by a Zimbabwean influencer explained how Tadiwa reflects family love, gaining thousands of likes and inspiring others to share their stories. Challenging colonial legacies. By proudly using Shona names in schools, workplaces, and global spaces, young people are pushing back against the colonial mindset that favored English names. They are normalizing names like Udakwashe or Nyasha in professional settings, demanding respect for their identity. This shift is visible in diaspora communities where young professionals insist on correct pronunciation of their names. Creating art and media. Young Shona artists, musicians, and writers are weaving traditional names into their work, changing how the world sees their culture. For example, a 2025 Zimbabwean hip-hop artist named Rudo released a song celebrating Shona names with lyrics about pride and resilience. Such projects inspire peers to embrace their heritage and challenge outdated views about African identity. Educating their communities. In Zimbabwe and abroad, youth are teaching others about the depth of Shona naming customs. Some organize cultural events or workshops like a 2025 youth-led festival in Harare that included Name Your Story session where people shared the meanings behind their Shona names. These efforts show that Shona culture is vibrant and relevant, not a relic of the past. Despite their enthusiasm, young people face challenges. In some global settings, Shona names are mispronounced or stereotyped as too hard. Economic pressures in Zimbabwe also push some to adopt English names for job opportunities abroad. However, these challenges only fuel their determination to change perceptions. The opportunities are exciting. With access to global platforms, young Zimbabweans can share their culture worldwide. In 2025, X posts show diaspora youth creating hashtags like Shona Names Matter, connecting Shona people across borders. Technology also makes it easier to research ancestral names, helping youth rediscover rare ones like Shakanaka. So just to conclude, I will just emphasize why Shona names matter today. The shift from forced English names during the colonial era to the embrace of Shona names today shows the resilience of Shona culture. Names are a way to honor the past while looking to the future. For example, a name like Tarisai might reflect hope for better days, especially in tough times like economic challenges or migration. Even in 2025, Shona names are a powerful way to preserve culture and identity. They remind people of their heritage even as the world becomes more connected. For young Shona people growing up in cities or abroad, a name like Munashe can be a link to their roots. Names also bring families together. When a child is given a name like Farai, it's a shared wish for joy that the whole family celebrates. In tough times, like economic challenges or migration, names like Tarisai inspires hope for a brighter future. So in conclusion, Shona naming customs are a beautiful blend of tradition, meaning and hope. Each name tells a story of a family's struggles, joys or dreams for their child. While rituals have changed with time, influenced by Christianity, urbanization and global trends, the heart of Shona naming remains unchanged. It's about giving a child a name that carries love, purpose, and connection to their culture. Whether it's Tadiwa for love or Nyasha for grace, Shona names continue to shine as a proud tradition in 2025 and beyond. For today's episode, we end here. Please like, subscribe, and share, and let's meet again next week to explore more Shona customs and traditions.